I am just.
Here we go. Do this over here though, because my experience has been it's difficult to pour this without spilling. There you go, and you don't even have to wear it. Good evening. Welcome to the Washougal City Council meeting for June 20th, 2011. If you would, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Forsberg, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Coaston.
Present.
Councilmember Shoemaker, sorry.
Here.
My paper's messed up. Councilmember McDaniel. Here. Councilmember Delavar.
Present.
Councilmember Greenlee.
Here.
Councilmember Morris.
Here.
And Councilmember Russell.
Present.
Thank you. Under amendments to the agenda, do we have any amendments to the agenda? Okay, seeing none.
Yes.
Oh, Dave, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'd like to pull item number 4 and number 6 off the consent agenda, please.
Okay.
For discussion?
We'll deal with that when we get to the consent agenda.
Okay.
Any other amendments to the agenda? Jennifer, do we have any correspondence?
No, we do not.
Okay. Mr. Capel, welcome.
Thank you. Mayor Guard, council members, staff, and citizens. I am Pete Capel. I'm Public Works Director for Clark County, but I'm here tonight in a different capacity. I'm an officer and secretary for the American Public Works Association Washington chapter, and I also happen to chair their awards committee. And annually, we call for nominations for projects that were completed in the prior year to be considered for the State Project of the Year Award. And for 2010, your pedestrian tunnel was nominated for the transportation, less than $5 million. There was 5 other nominations, and it actually, in that particular category, is sometimes some of the best projects, and it was really quite difficult. And in fact, there was another stellar project that we ended up giving a honorable mention to because the scoring was so close. But for the City of Washougal and your staff, Wallace Engineering, who was your designer, and Kaufman Excavation, we have a APWA 2011 Project of the Year Award for the SR-14 pedestrian tunnel. One of the reasons that it was selected was not just the quality of the project, but what the project was able to do in where it reconnected the historic downtown to the Captain William Clark Park and the river, and made your downtown area much more viable and friendly to the citizens, and it's a wonderful place to go. And so while it's a great engineering project, I think it's more of a real great public benefit. So congratulations, and present you this award.
Mr. Evers, would you come forward? Didn't know I was going to do that, did you?
On the spot.
Well, Pete, thank you. I had the sole honor of helping cut the ribbon for the tunnel, but other than that, I wasn't even with the city when the grants were done and most of the construction was done. So, forever being on board for that whole thing, and Dr. from our side, it's more appropriate that you accept this thing. All right. It was nice to note last evening, as well as we were coming back from Vancouver, 5 o'clock on a Sunday, on Father's Day, no less. I sat there and pointed to Annie and just pointed to the number of people that were swarmed down on the dike, that were coming down into the tunnel, and that were using it back and forth. It was, it's interesting how quickly that has been accepted and has taken off well. So thank you to everybody on the staff who had a hand in that tunnel. Okay, we're at the point in the agenda for public comments. Anyone who wishes to address the council this evening?
I do,
Mr. Olson.
My name is Harvey Olson, 3903 R Street. City council members, mayor, everybody in here. The Columbian newspaper about 6 months ago reported that the mayor told a police officer that was investigating a traffic incident that he had flashed his headlights from low to high beam, attempting to get a slower vehicle ahead of him to change lanes from the inside lane to the lane to his right. The driver stayed in the inside lane, not moving over. Now, yesterday, the Columbian editorial editor, John Laird, in his column, stated that the mayor recently apologized for using emergency lights on his city-owned vehicle. Mayor, this contradicts what you have been saying, and if I had to choose who is telling the truth, you, Mr. Mayor, wins hands down. Now, to flash your lights to alert slower drivers ahead of you to move over has been a common practice for as long as I have been a licensed driver, which is about 64 years. So I looked up the RCWs that deal with vehicle lighting and discovered a law passed in 2005 that makes flashing your headlights from low to high beam, if you're closer than 300 feet, a misdemeanor. The only problem with that is you have to go from one section of the lighting law back to the other section and back to the other one to try and determine just what in the heck the intent of whoever wrote that is trying to get across. So consequently, it makes it very difficult, and I've checked with law enforcement people on duty today and retired people, and none of them were aware of this new law. Mayor Guard, if this charge ends up in a court appearance for you, I am offering any assistance that my experience as a Seattle police officer can or could have to assist in your defense. And my forte in the police department was traffic, laws, and accident investigation. And I think I'm qualified and have been qualified as an expert witness in traffic cases in Seattle in the past. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, Harvey. Any other members of the public that wish to speak? I know I do have a card here from former Mayor Guard.
I too have it, Jeff Guard, mailing address or real address? Post Office Box 47, Washougal. I have been keeping up with what's been going on too in the papers, as well as talking with Sean. But one of the things that kind of got my attention was a quote that Mr. Briggs had sent some emails, and you know, there was concern about that and everything. And I respectfully disagree with you, Mike, is that I do believe you need to discuss this. If you guys are really, or guys and gals, are really headed down the path of true transparency and honesty and being open with how you conduct business, then talk about it. Be honest, be candid, be blunt if you need to be. But you also need to understand it really should only, the conversation should really revolve around what has happened and how that impacts and affects your ability to affect the decision making in order to keep this community evolving. When it starts coming time, people start doing the blame game, pointing fingers, and throwing people under the bus. That's probably not appropriate, and I would not support that at all. So I somewhat agree with Mike, I somewhat disagree. But that's why we live where we live. A couple other things that I heard in there, or saw in there too, is there was a quote, and I believe it was Councilman Russell, that said, "I've never seen someone say we can't talk about something." But I do remember, if you all can remember, there's a bunch of you up there that were told that by a former mayor, and you lived by it. So, there has been gag orders out there before, and it's unfortunate, and I'm glad that's not happening anymore, because I support the transparency and the openness when you're conducting business. So, there's a lot of things that are on that post that are offensive to me, or on the blog postings that are offensive to me. There's half-truths, there's perceptions from people, but I'm not here to deal with that now. I think the bottom line is your mayor admitted he made a mistake, he apologized, it's done. We have a saying, and I'm only going to paraphrase it because it's inappropriate language where I work: you mess up, you fess up, and you move on. You do the work that you're elected to do, and that's it. So I encourage the transparency. Don't play the blame game.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other members of the public wishing to address council? Okay. Moving into consent agenda. Councilman Shoemaker, I know you wanted to pull item 4. We were already pulling items 6 and 7 from the agenda to the main agenda. For a quick update, are there any other wishes in regard to the consent agenda? Hearing none, your pleasure with the consent agenda?
Madam, Mr. Mayor. It's the haircut, you're right. Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we approve the consent agenda consisting of number 1, council minutes, number 2, workshop minutes, number 3, AP claims, number 5, agenda bill 7911, a cemetery lot buyback, and number 8, a modified professional service agreement with the organizational consultant.
Hearing no objections, so ordered. Item number 4, Agenda Bill 7811, Professional Services Agreement with Wallace Engineering for Southside Sidewalks. Mr. Dunn.
In accordance with Washougal Municipal Code 2.44. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong one. Here we are. Staff is submitting a PSA from Wallace Engineering for East Street South Side Sidewalk project. In order for this matter to come before council for budget amendment, the concept development work was requested in advance and has already been completed. These costs are included in the requested expenditure amount. This project will consist of the design and construction administration for the installation of the south side sidewalk, curb gutter, bioretention storm facilities, and drainage modifications where needed, modular block or cast-in-place cement concrete retaining wall, including stairs, fencing, and other appurtenances, roadway signage and mailbox relocation, and property owner coordination. Task 1, conceptual development, that is completed. Task 2, design development. Task 3, final design and bidding. Task 4, construction administration, engineering, and inspection. And the recommended actions are to authorize the mayor to sign the Wallace Engineering Professional Service Agreement for the East Street South Side Sidewalk project.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize the mayor to sign the Wallace Engineering Professional Services Agreement for the East Street South Side Sidewalk project.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the Wallace Engineering Professional Services Agreement for the East Street South Side Sidewalk project. Councilman Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note that the funding for this is coming out of reserves. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. The wording on that is a little obscure. It says budgeted, yes, through budget amendment of 2 May 2011, which is true. But that obscures the fact that it's actually coming from reserves. That budget amendment approved how much? 500 and some odd thousand out of reserves? Of which 287,000 were for this project?
Yes, this project is $287,000.
Okay. I know that wasn't an intentional intent to obscure the fact that it's coming from reserves, but I wanted to point that out to people, that this is coming from reserves. And for that reason, I'll be voting no on it. And I regret that, Jim, because I know you had a lot of hard work on this, but I don't think it's going to fail.
Any other council comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Under time of performance, I just have a quick question. It mentions that services hereunder shall begin as of March 1st, 2011. And is that because some tasks have already been completed?
Yes, that's correct. We didn't want to delay the East Street project, and we looked at different scenarios regarding access management and different things like that. We looked at an asphalt path as well, so there was some cost incurred initially.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other items from council? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the Wallace Engineering Professional Services Agreement for the East Street South Side Sidewalk Project. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
Thank you.
Roll
Motion
call.
carries.
Councilmember Coaston?
Aye.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
No?
Councilmember McDaniel?
Aye.
Councilmember Delavar?
No.
Councilmember Greenlee?
Aye.
Councilmember Morris?
Aye.
And Councilmember Russell.
Aye.
Thank you. Agenda Bill 80-11, an interlocal agreement with the City of Camas for the continued provision of emergency medical services and advanced life support ambulance transport services, trial consolidation of fire departments, and evaluation of the emergency medical system. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, we ask that these items be pulled just to very briefly explain a couple minor adjustments that were made too late to get into your packets. These were, one of them was reflective, or two of them were reflective of some comments that came up during work session. There's a beige-colored sheet that summarizes those. I'll just briefly review those. In the interlocal agreement for the ambulance, we replaced the phrase "in or to" with "in the name of," and that had to do with how we titled the document council, or titled the ambulance. Councilman Delavar had expressed a concern about that language. And then we added some language about the logo consistent with what our practice is for these services. Councilman Morris had asked about that. And then in both interlocal agreements, the Camas City Attorney actually noticed that we had some slightly different language in the existing documents in how these get filed. Nothing substantive. The changes were just to make them consistent so that they read the same. And otherwise, everything in the agreements is identical to what was before you at the workshop. And the recommendation is to authorize the mayor to sign each of these agreements.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement with the City of Camas, Agenda Bill 80-11.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement with the City of Camas. Council discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Michael?
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to just clarify a couple of issues. I know we had a conversation at the end of last workshop, and it was a comment that I had written down. I meant to discuss it during the workshop, and then after we adjourned, I realized I hadn't discussed it. So I spoke with Mr. Scott, and I understand we had some emails going back and forth, and I just wanted to clarify to the full council something which may have potentially slipped the council's attention. And that is, when we were talking about the 6-month trial period for the interlocal agreement, I was noticing that the term ends at the end of the 6 months. And so, realistically speaking, with how these interlocal agreements go, we should be expecting to deliberate and extend that interlocal agreement before the end of the interlocal agreement. That's what I would expect. And so when we were discussing the length of the evaluation period, I just wanted to clarify that there isn't any misconception that it will be 6 months for the evaluation period, that it is going to be some period less than that. Do we have an expectation about how many months that evaluation period is going to be when we come back and we say we've had 3 months, we've had 4 months, do we know roughly how long that's going to be?
We intend to come back monthly to the councils with updates. We're going to begin immediately right after the first of the month when the new chief comes in to renew our efforts on the EMS situation and the financial dilemma that fund finds itself in. We intend to use the entirety of the term of this interlocal agreement to be evaluating the trial consolidation, but indeed it will expire coincidentally at that same time. I would expect that we'll have information later this fall that is fairly comprehensive, as much as it possibly can be given the time that we'll have, because we'll be into budget conversations and we'll have to be deliberating as each council about funding in these areas and whether there are any changes that are necessary. And I would expect to be before you, that the administration would be before you and the Camas Council as well with some kind of an amendment or update to this agreement before its expiration based upon what we're learning, whether that would be to extend it further for additional evaluation or with a solution. And hopefully that's what we'll have.
All right. I really appreciate that because, yeah, I know there was a potential misunderstanding of thinking about this as a 6-month period, and then at the end of that, we'll evaluate 6 months worth of it working versus something shorter of that. But that's my only point with that, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul?
I just wanted to kind of go through with you, not all of the evaluation is financial, correct? That a whole lot of it has to do with, in effect, trying to merge the cultures of two very different departments, one which is heavily staffed by volunteers and one which does not use volunteers, and that there's a whole lot of other issues as well as the financial.
Yes, I mean, the financial issue is the primary issue and one of the main impetus, but really we are out to enhance services to our community, and we're exploring consolidation as a way to do that. And certainly any time that you consolidate two organizations, whatever the nuances of their differences are, you're challenged to do that. So yes, the chiefs will be working with the IAFF and our volunteers and doing the best that they can do cooperatively with those groups to effect a successful trial consolidation as we continue to march down the road. I can report just very briefly that we're very encouraged in Washougal and in Camas, I understand, from the acting chief that we're basically ready to have an MOU with the IAFF that will help to facilitate the trial consolidation. They've been very positive and cooperative in moving forward, and as they've indicated that they intended to be. So that's greatly appreciated, and we'll probably have a conversation about that next week at our workshop, and I believe Camas will be doing the same as well. So everything is falling into place, but yes, thank you. This is it's no small undertaking to look at consolidating fire departments from two communities, and we've got our work cut out for us, but it's pretty exciting to know that we're taking that step. So,
thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Molly?
Just a point of clarification, I've actually forgotten, I know this is a bit tangential but pertinent. What's the start date of the new Camas fire chief?
I believe it's right after the 4th, but Monty's
July
here.
5?
July 5th.
Okay, so he'll jump right into the beginning of this and be very
Yes.
involved.
In fact, if I understood Monty correctly, he's already jumped in
Oh, great.
from South Dakota by email. So
Good.
he's fully informed and excited to come on board, I understand. So
And also, what's our best guess, and I understand it's a guess, as to when we will have our new firefighter and qualified?
see, testing finishes up
Was this weekend?
at the end. There was some this weekend, and then there's,
Jeanette?
This weekend will be the CPAP feasibility testing. Interviews on the Little Board is scheduled for the 30th of June, and then choosing interviews to follow. So pretty aggressive timeline.
should have a selection early July, and then depending upon who that individual is and what their experience is, we'll aggressively move forward for them to be fully deployable. So it could be as early as, say, August 1. It might take a little longer than that, just depending upon what happens, but I think we had a pretty good response to our recruitment, so we're
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Dave?
If I understand it correctly, we plan to transfer $150,000 from the EMS fund reserves to make this possible?
there was a supplemental appropriation of $150,000 that was made to fund the position that we were just speaking about, and that's $55,000 in 2011, and then to transfer $95,000 to the city of Camas for their EMS fund, and those monies were taken from the EMS restricted fund. Those are restricted monies.
All 150,000?
Correct.
Okay, so it came out of EMS reserves?
It's Fund 125, which is the EMS fund.
Okay, which is dedicated to the EMS
EMS, right.
provision?
Right.
Okay.
From the levy.
Unfortunately, this $150,000 doesn't buy us a solution. It buys us time to try to find a solution. But I don't see that on the horizon. And what concerns me is that by 2013, which is 18 months away, this fund is going to be, this EMS fund is going to be close to $300,000 in deficit. That concerns me. We don't have a lot of reserves as it is. We're spending, we continue to spend our reserves as we have almost every year. We didn't spend it last year. We came in last year $350,000 to the good. And then we immediately, 3 months later, asked for a supplemental budget appropriation of nearly twice that, and most of that, or all of that, rather, from reserves. So we're not doing well with regard to managing our reserves. They're dwindling, and I'd like to see some effort to save those. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Any other items from council?
Yeah, I really need to respond to that because the money is in the reserve because we did appropriately budget and build reserves. I admit that it was before you were on council, but the reason that we have reserves is because when times were good, we banked the money so that we would have it available to carry us across difficult times. And the city can't print money. We can only spend the money that we saved in previous administrations. Mayor Jeffgard passed a reserve to Mayor Sellers, and Mayor Sellers passed a reserve to us. The idea that we have consistently withdrawn down our reserves is simply not accurate. We have built those reserves, and it's only in the midst of the most recent economic downturn that we have been spending those reserves.
Any other items from council? I know this is a issue that we've had in regard to use of reserves and that type of stuff. I don't want this conversation, though, to overshadow the interlocal agreement and the agenda item that's in front of you right now. But that said, Councilman Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, the issue of the interlocal agreement hinges on the funding, which is coming from reserves.
Coming from restricted funds.
Obviously, yes, thank you. Obviously, Mr. Greenlee and I have a very different concept about reserves. It is a good idea to build it up when times are flush so that you can get through the lean years. And you would expect to spend them during the lean years. However, we're looking at a period of, I don't know how many fat years we had, but we've got probably 7 lean years to look at. We've been through a couple of them, and we've got several more to go through before the economy turns up, before our tax collections begin to get back to where they were. And so the question is, do we spend that money now and face any emergency that arises with empty coffers, or do we save some of those reserves towards the emergency that may come up in the next couple of years? And our philosophy to date has been, spend it while you've got it. And my concern with that is that when we don't got it, that's when the emergency always comes up. And I can tell you that from 40 years of experience in working for government at the federal, state, and local level. I've seen emergencies. It's not pretty. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just need to continue to point out that those reserves are there, that we built them up, and the idea that they are somehow sacrosanct, that once you have reserves, you should not spend them at all, is, I think, a complete misunderstanding of why you even have reserves.
And therein lies the issue. Why do we have reserves? In my view, reserves are for emergencies and emergencies only. They're not to get you through an operating deficit that could be handled by other means. And that's the disagreement that is raging on this council right now. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon.
Any final items from council? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement with Camas. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carried. To Agenda Bill 8111, an interlocal agreement with the City of Camas for the provision and equipping of an ambulance. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In my brief report, just prior, my comments were applicable to this item as well. And the recommended action is to authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement.
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement with the City of Camas for the provision and equipment of an ambulance. Discussion from council. Michael?
I just wanted to say thank you very much for following up on this. I know it's a small item, but it makes it a lot cleaner, and I do appreciate the effort.
Other items from council? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement with the City of Camas for the provision and equipping of an ambulance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. As Mr. Scott pointed out, it is no small task to get through the 2 items that you just got through and get them to the point of being able to bring them forward to you for approval. I certainly want to extend my appreciation to the working committee that met continuously and worked on this. Councilman Morris, Councilman Shoemaker, both on there, in addition to other members of our staff and the chiefs. Monty Brockman here in the audience tonight from the City of Camas, thank you very much for all of the help and patience everybody had as we worked through this to something that we're able to get to conclusion this evening. So, thank you. Okay, into the regular agenda. We have a public hearing, Agenda Bill 8311, our Transportation Improvement Program update. Mr. Dunn.
Yes, in accordance with RCW 35.77.010, the city must submit the annual Transportation Improvement Program, TIP, update to the Regional Transportation Council each year by July 1st. On June 6, 2011, staff requested to set a public hearing tonight on June 20th, 2011, to gather public comment. Couple items that have changed from last year are the inclusion of 30 4th Street pedestrian improvements, and also 32nd and Evergreen intersection improvements. And recommended actions are to open the public hearing, read resolution by title only, pass, post, and publish in the usual manner.
Thank you. With that, I will open the public hearing and ask anyone from the audience that wishes to speak in regards to the Transportation Improvement Program to step forward. Mr. Olson.
Yeah, Harvey Olson's 3903 R Street. I've gone through the whole agenda of the Transportation 6-year program, and I'm in favor of every item there. Money, of course, is the big thing. If you got the money, pick out the projects that are more important for safety to pedestrians. I think is really should be high on the agenda. I'm also in favor of the Highway 14 corridor that and the 27th Street going over the railroad. Those are needed projects. Of course, they're very spendy, and if we can get the money, fine. If we can't, we just go on the way we are. But I would hope that you folks up there consider public safety #1, and your sidewalk projects, I think, fall into that category. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Any other individuals wishing to speak in regards to Agenda Bill 8311? I'll make a third and final call for anyone wishing to speak in regards to the Transportation Improvement Program update.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the
Hang on.
I'm sorry.
Seeing and hearing no other comments, I'll close the public hearing. You're on.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the resolution by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
A resolution adopting a 6-year transportation improvement program update.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass, post, and publish in the usual manner.
Second. We've got a motion and a second to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. Council discussion? David?
Jim, is there any way, obviously we need to pass this in order to get the grants. We need to get the grants because the feds and the state take all our money and then they portion it back to us if we compete well in the grant process, which is very generous of them. It gets back to the issue of local control, which I hope someday to return to. But is there any way to get out from under the federal and state mandates that don't fit well in Washougal and still get the grant?
The simple answer is if it's a requirement of the grant itself and the acceptance of the grant, no. It's.
Well, that's what I figured. And I appreciate that information.
Yeah, if we want and need their money, we either play by their rules or they use the money in other ways, so.
I've had that put to me exactly that way by the people from the Transportation Department.
Yes. Other questions from council?
I do. Jim, I have a question about BP2. That's the 34th Street Curb Gutter and Sidewalk Project, Safe Routes to School grant expected. Do you have any updates for us on that, or how that's going for application?
At this time, we have a Washington State DOT engineer looking into the feasibility of that particular project. She will draft a report and get that report back to us, and then that will help us draft the Safe Routes grant. So that's where we're at this point.
Thank you.
Molly?
And basically, just a comment. So I know Jim has worked really hard and his staff on this, as he always does. But I really like the fact that we do delineate bike and ped projects, neighborhood projects, and capital big projects, because what tends to happen if you put them in one list is that the big dog, the big expensive project will be funded, and all of these ped and bike and small neighborhood projects will never be funded. So at least this way we can take a look at those different areas and be able to select some small projects that have are really valuable and important, as well as hopefully one big one in the next year, couple of years.
Thank you. Other comments? John?
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask this or make a motion in this regard, but could we move the 27th Street up 1 and the Stiles Road down 1? Just exchange them, 2 and 3. For me, the phase 2 portion of this with the 32nd Street and the construction of the interchanges really goes hand in hand with the 27th Street exchange. Because if we get the interchanges, in particular at 27th Street, then we're eventually going to need to have a way to get those vehicles out of 27th Street and into East Street and into the other parts of town. So to me, it just seems like this would be the next step in funding, and it looks like that we already have 100,000 or $1 million eyeballed for that. So just asking to exchange the priority level.
Paul?
We talked about that some in Public Works Committee and with the consultant. Stiles Road, 32nd Street ends up becoming a much more heavily traveled route once you have the 27th Street overpass. And in a lot of ways, you really need to do those improvements before you dump that overpass onto 32nd. The other thing to say is that these priority lists are a bit deceptive because, frankly, if we got funding for C Street at Washougal River Road intersection improvement before we got anything else, that's the one that would be done first. So the priorities are not priorities in the sense that we're going to do this one and then this one and then this one. It's because whatever funding you get is going to generate which ones you actually do.
Yeah, I just think we get into, and maybe I haven't seen the plan, or maybe, Mr. Mayor, maybe there isn't a plan yet, but a general master plan for transportation in that area. Are we going to keep 32nd Street open if we have a 27th Street on and off ramp? Is that something that we need to realign 32nd into 27th? I mean, there's just a lot of things that I think we haven't considered as far as traffic patterns for the long-term strategy of these projects, because these are good projects. But I don't know that we've taken in the whole account to what the city will look like at that point and what we need it to look like to work properly.
Yeah, you can certainly put it in a chicken or an egg concept of which one's going to happen in there first, and certainly the design work that we have getting ready to go out, the joint program between ourselves and the port for the design of 27th Street will start to answer some of those questions, but we certainly haven't allocated enough money to be able to do a complete redesign of that entire region down there. Jim, your thoughts on rearranging the orders of 1 and 2?
Yeah, you know, this is based on the 2005 capital facility plan, and there was a tremendous amount of work done on circulation and traffic patterns, but if you look at 27th Street as it ties into East Street corridor, and then there's that maneuver towards the 32nd Street intersection, and then most of the traffic, we believe, will be to the rural areas to the north. So that would be the most likely travel path for traffic. I don't know if that explains it anymore, but to realign 32nd would be, might be cost prohibitive, but we could definitely look into that further in the conceptual that we're doing. So.
From a staff perspective, Jim, do you foresee any problems if 1 and 2 are reversed in order?
2 and 3.
Excuse me, 2 and 3?
No, I don't see any issues with that at all. As Councilman Greenlee mentioned, priorities will change, you know, as funding comes forward, and so it doesn't seem to be an issue on my part. So.
And just to clear up one thing, the 32nd Street stuff that we're talking about is all north of the railroad track. And so it's 32nd Street, Stiles Road, and Lair Road.
Right.
and possibly the W Street connector, which would go across then and tie 32nd to 39th and on over basically into the Sunset View neighborhood. And so that's all an integrated piece.
Yeah, okay,
So-
thank you.
John, if you want to make that change, you want to offer that up as an amendment?
Yeah, I'd like to just make an amendment. I know that it's not going to make an earth-shattering effect on this, but if the council would entertain the idea, I would like to offer that up to give that a higher priority.
Okay, I'll take that to be a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to amend the major roadway projects listing, basically switching the orders of Major Roadway 2 and Major Roadway 3. Any council discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And we still have a live motion and a second in regard to pass posting and publishing the amended information in the usual manner. Any other council discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda Bill 8411, a policy restricting pavement and curb cutting on E Street from Lechner to 32nd Street for a 5-year period. Mr. Dunn.
In order to preserve the surface structure along E Street, staff is submitting a policy that no pavement on E Street from the westerly city limits at Lechner, 6th Street, to west side of the intersection of 32nd Street shall be cut for a period of 5 years after the pavement has been reconstructed as part of the East Street Improvements Project. As this improvement project has incurred millions of dollars in the restoration and construction along this corridor, untrenched construction methods such as pushing, boring, or bore pulling are being required in order to protect the newly constructed sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and road surfacing. And recommended actions are to read the resolution by title only, pass, post, and publish in the usual manner.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the resolution by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
The resolution adopting the East Street curb cut policy.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass and post in the usual manner.
Second?
We've got a motion and a second to pass and post the resolution in the usual manner. Council discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This may be just a technical issue, but I just want to make sure that it is. In the last paragraph, in about the middle of number 3, if you will, there's a sentence which says, let's see, all lanes in the same direction shall be overlaid or grinded to a depth of no less than 4 inches. And I just wanted, I looked this up, and actually it is a word, and I was just curious, is that a technical word for grinded, or should we amend that to ground?
We can certainly change it to ground.
The reason I ask is because I didn't want to take a technical word and then take it out of its technical context, but it just seems like it would be appropriate for us just to put down ground, if that's all right. But I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be undoing something that was legally there. With that, Mr. Mayor, I move to replace the word grinded with the word ground in
Section 3.
In Section 3, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Could I just add something? Would that be possible for me to check the terminology? We actually looked at the county's policy, and we do use a grinder that's a grinding machine. So I'm not sure if this is a technical engineering term that we may want to keep in there. I just don't want to get off on changing the policy if there's a certain piece of equipment that we need to use.
There's no second, so there's no motion.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll take that as a removal of the motion. I've still got a motion and a second to pass and post the resolution. Molly?
Just a question. So before we vote, I just want to make sure that all the commercial and, I don't know if residential property owners need this, but they've all been notified of this intent? Have they?
Not at this point. Notification was not given of the intent as of yet.
Okay.
But we will notify all of the utilities in the area.
Okay.
Those are the ones that would be working in the street to
All right,
supply
so-
services to businesses and residents.
So the utilities have or will be shortly notified?
They will be notified as soon as this passes.
Okay.
Yes.
Rod?
Jim, could you give us a condensed version of what would constitute an emergency and that process of how they would have to go through that through you?
Sure. If there was maybe some sort of break in the street, if obviously we would have to cut for emergency operations, and then there is director approval included in the policy, so the director would have discretion as to what the restoration would look like. We want to make sure that the road is preserved, obviously, and it may be 20 feet from each side of the cut, and the travel lane, it may be more than that. It just depends on what the damage is or what the cut looks like at the time.
Thanks.
Any other council discussion? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to pass and post the resolution in the usual manner. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda Bill 8511, an amendment to Washougal Municipal Code 2.04.050. Jennifer, Dave, who wants to take it?
I'll take it. Thank you, Mayor. Council. The ordinance before you, we reviewed last week at workshop. It's to correct what, and to make sure that we include in this portion of our code what was your intent, that the appointments committee be seated to make all appointments, councilmanic appointments, including special committees, and we had inadvertently left that out. This language clarifies and makes sure that we capture that category. An example of that recently was your ethics committee. And just as by way of a reminder, the appointment committee makes recommendations to the full council, who then decides on the appointment. And the recommended action is to read the ordinance by title only, and then to pass, post, and publish in the usual manner.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the ordinance by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
An ordinance amending Washougal Municipal Code 2.04.050 relating to the establishment of special committees with specified functions for a designated term to be made by a motion of council.
Mr. Mayor, I move we pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. Any council discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Agenda Bill 8611, Ethics Policy, Elected and Appointed Officials.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, adopt by resolution an ethics policy that will govern both elected and appointed officials of the City of Washougal. The recommended actions are to read the resolution by title only, pass and post the resolution in the usual manner.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the resolution by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
A resolution adopting a City of Washougal Code of Ethics for city elected and appointed officials.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass and post the resolution in the usual manner.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second to pass and post the resolution in the usual manner. Any council discussion? David?
I move to table this, this resolution pending some discussion and resolution of issues about various sections of it that were not resolved at the last workshop. I'd be happy to go in, excuse me, go into detail if necessary, but I think there are enough of them that I just think this thing needs to go back one more time to the workshop.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if it would be okay, could we work on those issues now? The committee's worked very hard on this ethics policy, and I think it would be a good idea for us to go ahead and hash out some of those issues. I mean, we have the ability to do it now, and we could take action on it instead of postponing it.
Okay. On paragraph 5, and I note that others have noticed the problem with this paragraph, and I see the email exchange on trying to fix it, and I certainly applaud that effort. I struggled with this one also, but it says, "Seek no favor, semicolon. Believe that." I don't think it's appropriate to tell people what they should believe. I think you can say simply, "Seek no favor, comma, personal benefit or profit," and I would change secured by to based on confidential information or by misuse of public time, period. I don't think we need to say that it's dishonest. Would you like to vote on each one as we go, or?
Each one, I believe, would need to be an amendment, so yes.
I would second that. I would second that change.
Can we have it repeated, please?
Dave, can you?
Do you want me to repeat it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you could.
Let's see if I can get this right here. Seek no favor, comma, personal benefit or profit based on confidential information or, and I guess I'd strike the word by, or misuse of public time, period.
Second, if that was a motion.
Yeah, I've got a second. I'm just trying to catch up on my
Okay.
notes. So I've got a motion and a second for the First Amendment in Section 5. Section 5, the title section will now read, "Seek no favor, personal benefit, or profit based on confidential information or misuse of public time." Any council discussion on that amendment?
Very good, Mr. Mayor. You make a great recorder.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Yes, I have an eraser.
I thank Councilmember Shoemaker for bringing up this issue. I know that we had discussed this at last meeting, and I actually agree with your comment that it is inappropriate to tell people what to believe. It is completely appropriate to seek certain behaviors and actions, but it's inappropriate to start dealing with belief. So I agree with you on that. As far as the amendment is concerned, I want to point out something that is going to potentially change our vote here on this amendment. The original statement is seek no favor, and then it tacks on another thought along with that, which is different than seeking favor. Seeking favor can be something as simple as asking, or I should say even just implying or indirectly requesting for somebody, a business, a contractor, city department, whatever, to do something in your benefit. However, seeking favor is not dependent on it being confidential information necessarily. And so I think with the change, if we think of it in those terms, by having the comma instead of a semicolon here, we're making a list of things not to seek. So the new meaning would be seek no favor or personal benefit or profit based on confidential information, which would reduce the seek no favor portion simply just to don't seek any of these things based on confidential information or misuse of public time. And I think that could be a little bit more confusing than it necessarily needs to, because I think seeking no favor is an appropriate thing for an ethics policy to include. Anyway, having said that, I'm going to head and yield the floor and let others discuss this amendment.
A question?
Yes.
Can you propose an amendment that will satisfy your concerns? No pride in authorship here.
Yes, actually, I could actually. I would say that if instead of saying seek no favor, comma, we would say seek no favor, semicolon, seek no benefit or profit based on confidential information or misuse of public time. I think that would accommodate your intent.
It would, indeed. And I like it much better. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mayor,
I want the one that's in the emailed form.
Actually, I'm not sure if I put that down that way, but, Mr. Mayor, I would move to amend the amendment to strike, or should I say, replace the first comma with a semicolon.
Second.
And insert the words "seek no."
Second.
Okay, I've got an amendment to the amendment. To reword the title of section 5 to seek no favor, semicolon, seek no personal benefit or profit based on confidential information or misuse of public time. Correct? Perfect. Any other council discussion on the amendment to the amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I think that takes care of the amendment as well.
No. That, Mr. Mayor, I disagree. I believe that takes care of the amendment to the amendment. Amending the amendment, so now we have the amendment to.
We have
motion.
we have to vote on the amended amendment.
I'll take your word for it. We've just reworded it, so I've still got a motion and a second on the original amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Councilman Shoemaker, any additional items?
I'm not sure what just happened there, but I'll go along with
I
everything
believe you've
else.
got it worded the way that you wanted to have it worded.
Okay.
Item number
Actually,
three.
I like the way Mr. Delavar did it.
Item number 3.
Okay. Flipping over to paragraph, actually, it's a continuation of paragraph 5 on the back. Top line, information acquired by them in the course of their official duties. I don't think you need by them. I think it's redundant.
Oh,
Okay.
And I would move to strike that. And since that's a real short one, may I add to the amendment, since it's the next paragraph in number 5, that a similar problem? It says, officials shall not directly or indirectly solicit any gift or accept or receive any gift, whether it be money, services, loan, travel, entertainment, hospitality, promise, or any other form. I'm confused by the word form.
Any other form of gift?
Do we need to be explicit with that? Form of gift?
Yeah, I think it's basically a catch-all. I mean, you could continue that list that you just went through for quite a few pages, I'm sure.
Or any other gift?
I think it assumes it's a gift, it's just the form of the gift that's in question.
Okay. Or any other form of gift might be a possibility, but just to say any other form, there's no antecedent to form, so I'm not sure what it means.
If I might speak up here just a moment. The title of the paragraph is gifts. That's in bold and in italics. So it's inferred, the whole paragraph is talking about gifts.
And if you need to go back to the first of the paragraph to figure that out, it makes it difficult. I'm looking for the first reading to be informative and easily understood.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Help me, Michael.
Well, I just wanted to point out that when the clause says whether it be, basically whether it be money, you could expand that sentence to say whether shall not accept any or receive any gift, whether it be money, whether it be services, whether it be loan, whether it be travel, whether it be entertainment, so on and so forth. And in essence, whether it be any other form would be the end of that list. So the list is whether it be, and then you have all these different things which the gift could be. So the form, I would think, would be appropriate, since it's basically just modifying, the different things that a gift could be.
I would agree.
Am I barking up the wrong tree here? Okay. Let's withdraw that portion of it and leave the amendment to striking by them. And then I have one last one on number 6, which is easy,
Okay,
which we can come to next.
let's finish with number 3. So under confidential information, the last sentence, we are striking the words "by them." So it'll read, "information acquired in the course of their official duties."
Second.
I've got a motion to it. Is that a second, Michael?
Yes.
I've got a motion and a second. Any council discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried on that amendment. And item number 4.
Last one, down where it says guidelines, personal relationships. It says in a quasi-judicial proceedings. If you drop A, in quasi-judicial proceedings, comma, elected or appointed officials shall abide by the directives, et cetera. Right now, you've got a singular and a plural confused there.
Should we proceed?
Okay, do we have a second?
So what is the amendment?
So what we're,
striking A.
under personal relationships, we're
deleting A.
striking the word
Striking
"a,"
A.
the second word,
Oh,
and we're
yes.
putting
I'll
a
second
comma
it.
after quasi-judicial proceedings.
That's not a big one, but
We need to take care of those things.
Are we adding a comma?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any further council discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And any others, Councilman Shoemaker?
none, thank you.
Okay. Any other items from council before we go back to the original motion? Molly?
Just a comment, and that is, I was a part of the Ethics Review Committee, and I do appreciate the amount of work that my fellow council members, that we went to try to find something that was appropriate, that was not punitive, that would not trap anyone with consequences, because I think we really felt like there are state RCWs in place that do deal with very specific items that, and that's the way we felt like this code of ethics should be more like a guideline, sort of the high ground for us, that we hold ourselves and represent our citizens in good faith. So I just want to thank as well, Human Resources Director Cefalo for bringing many, many ethics policies before us, so we were able to get something we all thought was totally appropriate.
Okay, any other last comments?
I second that. Are you 30?
Yes, I definitely appreciate the work that my fellow members.
Absolutely.
Having made all these suggestions for revising it, I have to make one final comment, and that is, I think that...
That you
for us-
support it now?
No. I don't think it's appropriate for us to adopt an ethics policy here on the council, because I think this is an area of responsibility that the voters have, and they have the power to deal with it, and they should deal with it. I don't think it's appropriate for us to take that responsibility upon ourselves from them and try to deal with it. They're better qualified, and they're empowered to do it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. Paul?
And not surprisingly, I have a little different point of view on that, that the function of an ethics policy, especially for elected officials, is to aid in informing voters. That in the absence of an ethics policy, you're depending upon the voters to do a whole lot more research and understanding of what's going on and what happened, and I just don't think that's appropriate. I think that the ethics policy serves the very useful function of bringing information to the voters to aid them in making their decision. When we sit up here on council, we spend hours and hours and hours every week informing ourselves on the issue of the cities. And I remember not too many years ago when I would look down the list of candidates and say, who the heck is that? How would I know? And I think an ethics policy helps inform that decision.
Any other council comments? Okay, I've got a motion and a second on the floor to pass and post the resolution in the usual manner. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carried. I also would like to thank the committee and Jeanette for your diligent work in looking over our existing policies as they were and making the recommendations that you have. Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the regular agenda for this evening and brings us back to the second opportunity for public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to address the council? Good evening, Don.
Good evening, Don Boland, 32934 Southeast 20th Street. I decided to talk after I heard what individuals had to say on 8011 and 8111, the emergency and the EMC funds. And I am concerned about reserves, but what I'm more concerned, and I expect you to do, as representing the citizens, are you spending the dollar wisely? Not where did it come from? And the research I've done, which is limited, is one of the biggest structural problems that they have is the overtime. So one of the things I asked some of the people is if you took all the overtime and paid it regular time, does it solve the problem? And the answer was no. So that concerns me about the approach of saying we're going to put two things together and we're going to somehow make it more efficient. It seems to me that it would have been a resounding yes. The other thing I think that has to be done, and this is the citizens, they have to realize they can't have everything they want. And if service has to change, then you got to sell them. You got to make that decision. I've, for years when I walked in, I can't buy everything I want at any store. So that's not hard to understand. The one thing I do feel is that I didn't say anything because both of these projects are like railroad trains going full steam. But I was hoping maybe I could do a little deflection and make sure that we look as soon as we can to the economics. And this is my gut feeling. Somehow I feel the mayor is being held back to take a look at the real problem. And that may be just illusion, my imagination. But I think we have to address the real problem. The only other comment is, in addition to your ethics policy, I'm still waiting for that mission statement for what is the mission of the council, not of the city. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Don. Any other members of the public wishing to address council? Mr. Olson.
One more. Harvey Olson, 3903 R Street. I think all of you should be complimented on your ethics efforts to get an ethics policy through without calling in outside experts. And the outside experts that were mentioned before were from communities that have had a lot more ethics problems than you folks. I've been coming down here for some time, over 3-4 years, and I feel that everybody here, you might have some minor disagreements between each other occasionally, but on the whole, you respect each other and your opinions. And I compliment all of you for your job that you have done getting that through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Any other comments from the public?
Get back up here to Jeff Guard, Post Office Box 47, Washougal. Just a quick history lesson on 27th, 32nd, for example, and the TIP 6-year plan. You know, Highway 14 was on that for 20 years before we finally broke the ice, and I think it was 2004. After some intense lobbying with the legislature, 2004, 2005. We still didn't get everything we wanted, but that tunnel project is part of what we got out of that, because that was part of that project. We also had, because Scott Sawyer put his plan together, he did have a master plan. And it didn't just involve SR 14, it also involved 27th Street half diamond interchange off SR 14, a overhead crossing coming over the tracks at 27th, kind of a curved overhead like we got at 15th and 17th. Still 15th to me. And that was part of the original proposal and was part of that 6-year plan that carries forward and forward and forward through many councils, through many administrations, through much of your staff. It also included shutting down 32nd. 32nd is a freaking nightmare. I tell you, I commute from Portland and I don't take 32nd anymore, especially at night. So the key word, continuity. That's why I'm here to give you your history lesson. Reserves. And Rod was there back in the day, and I think Don was on. When we heard a report in January of 2001, we had less than $50,000 in reserves. We made a commitment at that time. We're going to get it up to $500,000 by the end of, it was actually December of, it wasn't January 01, it was sooner than that. I want to say January 08. We said by the time we got through that 4-year administration that we'd have it at 500. On January 02, there was 500,000 plus in that fund. When I left office at January 1 of 06, there was $3.5 million plus an ER&R fund with about 400,000 in it, and a building contingency fund with 700,000 in it. And it continued to build under Mayor Sellers. And then the bottom dropped out. We used to call it a rainy day fund. Well, it's been raining a long time, and it's still raining. So that's what it's for. It's scary to think that, you know, we could lose all the reserves, and I appreciate Councilman Shoemaker's discussion about that. There are fire districts that have disincorporated. There are fire districts within the state of Washington that sold their gear and their fire engines in order to pay the bills. They quit. They gave up. You know, it takes a lot of guts to keep it going, but this is number one for everybody. That's public safety. So, you know, you guys got to make a tough call when it comes to come to reserves. And it's coming to the point where it's crunch time when it comes to that. I don't envy you the job you have. By the way, I suggest to everybody grammarlady.com that solve all those problems where to put the colon. I've been using that for 15 years as a tech writer, so grammarlady.com.
Thanks, Jeff. Save the best part to the end. Any other comments from public? Okay. I've got just 3 quick items under Mayor's report. Number 1 is a letter that I received today from the Department of Ecology. Dear Mayor Guard, congratulations. The Washington State Department of Ecology has identified the City of Washougal wastewater treatment plant as a recipient of the 2010 Wastewater Treatment Plant Outstanding Performance Awards. Ecology will issue a press release, My staff evaluated wastewater treatment plants in Washington for compliance with the effluent limits, monitoring and reporting requirements, spill prevention planning, pre-treatment, and overall operational demands of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. Of approximately they don't word these to be read easily. Of approximately 300 wastewater treatment plants statewide, yours is one of only 104 that has achieved full compliance with its 2010 permit. It takes diligent operators and a strong management team working effectively together to achieve this high level of compliance. It's not easy to operate a wastewater treatment plant 24 hours a day, 365 days a year without any violations. Ecology appreciates the extraordinary level of effort demonstrated throughout 2010. Skillful and proficient operators are critical to the success of plant operations and protection of Washington State's precious waters. Your excellent record demonstrates that dedicated operators run the City of Washougal wastewater treatment plant, and their combined efforts lead to an outstanding compliance. Congratulations, and thank you for the excellent service you provide. So, Jim, to all of the staff, thank you for all of those efforts. I think that's the second year in a row I've had the opportunity to read that letter. Oh, Who is that behind those Foster grants?
Yes, Ryan Baker is wastewater treatment plant supervisor down there. He deserves a lot of credit for that letter right there.
Ryan, thank you for the entire team. I will, for the appointments committee, I will be asking Vicki this week to set up a time for us to meet to discuss the council appointment to the Economic Development Commission Board. So you'll see that coming from Vicki. And then one final note, we do have a current opening on the Planning Commission. So we'll begin advertising that opening, and I'm sure that will go to the newspapers as well. That's all that I have. Council comments?
Who did we lose?
Yes, I would like to know who is stepping off the planning commission.
Mr. Briggs has resigned his position today.
Oh, really?
Mr. Morris?
Since we know that school is winding down and tomorrow's a half day and they're all out, last Friday and then today, we had tours at the fire station. And Friday was second graders, were 4 different groups, and today there was one group of 7th graders. And no offense to the police officers in the room or fire department, but I've heard a lot of people say that it takes a special person to be a police officer or a firefighter, but it takes an exceptional person to be a second grade teacher or a 7th grade.
Other council comments? Paul?
I just wanted to mention that on the 9th of June, I went to the reception for the management team for Short Season LLC, which is the group that owns the Yakima Bears and is hoping to bring professional baseball to Vancouver. It was an interesting meeting. It was well attended. It was put on by the Greater Vancouver Chamber of Commerce. Not surprisingly, the difficult issues that are still unsolved have to do with the capital funding for building the stadium and also the operating expenses. Just as a quick aside for anyone in the audience, that the naming rights for the stadium are up on the block, and anyone who wants to contribute massive bucks to have the stadium named after them, that money will all go into the capital construction fund and not to the bottom line of the baseball team, which is what happens for most athletic teams. So that's a good sign anyway, and I was very impressed by the people and their professionalism, and that maybe we can have professional baseball here in Vancouver and generate a reason for lots of people to come this way across the bridge.
Thank you, Paul. Others? Molly?
Just a comment. A couple of weeks ago, I went to the Historical Society, which is an adjunct of the Two Rivers Heritage Museum. They have quarterly meetings, and the featured speaker was Mike Taylor. Mike is a board member for Oregon Archaeological Society and as well is the executive director for Culture Watch Northwest. And his specialty and avocation, since he recently sold his tech business to, I believe it was Microsoft, is rock art. And he spent some time talking to the folks there at that gathering about rock art, all the way along the whole Snake and Columbia river beds. But he spent about 20 minutes talking about the what he calls the petroglyph tunnel. He doesn't call it the pedestrian tunnel. And he is so proud of that. He thinks it's one of our shining jewels. And he has had people from Oregon, from Portland, from Washington, and from Vancouver make a point to come and walk through that because he thinks it was such an exceptional project. And he's one of our greatest promoters in general. He likes Washougal. He thinks we have a stellar future. So I just wanted to make that comment that we have some real fans that live well outside of our city limits.
Thank you, Molly. Other items from council? John?
This past Saturday, we had Compassion Connect here in Washougal. We had over 20 volunteers show up, and the turnout was light because we didn't advertise a lot, but we're providing free medical clinic, which is also going to incorporate a free meal for anyone who comes, and also there's a massage therapist who's there, as also as a podiatrist to help people with their feet and so forth. So it's free to the public, free to everyone to come, and it's the third Saturday of each month at Bethel Church in the back entrance. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I wanted to bring up an item here which has to do with something that was part of our business a couple of, I think, was it 2 weeks ago, about the minutes? Either 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. Anyway, with regards to the special minutes of the special meeting, you may have noticed that on the in front of you there was a copy. I typed up this copy, which was based on the minutes that were given to us previously by the port, and I do recognize that it chops out a tremendous amount of information, but my purpose for preparing these minutes was to preserve, first off, the fact that we had a public meeting so we can pass the minutes, who was present, and the basic business of the meeting, as well as try to address some of the concerns of some council members with regards to the inclusion of certain comments and exclusion of certain comments. Since we don't have a recording of the actual meeting itself, and you take a look at what it would take to go off of recollection to try to get the full explication of all the different comments that were out there, I thought it was best just to chop out everything that was potentially controversial and just give us the bare bones basic. Having said that, there was a little bit of a discussion as to whether or not we should be passing this tonight or whether it can wait. I don't think that there's anything pressing, so I'm going to ask that this item that's before you be included with in 2 weeks, that the agenda that's on our next regular council meeting. What's that?
July 5th.
July 5th? All right, thank you very much. Anyway, so that explains what that is and where it came from, and I have no other items to report from here.
Anyone else? Jennifer?
Yeah, I have a comment also, kind of to piggyback on Councilmember Morris and his comments about Friday afternoon and the tours. They also toured City Hall, and Mayor Gard wasn't available that day, so I filled in as an official greeter for the second graders, and David Scott, our city administrator, and myself basically conducted a mock council meeting, and it was very interesting for the kids. What was the issue? The issue was a movie theater and how it was going to be built, where it was going to be built, and that sort of thing. And it was very interesting to watch how the children came up with their individual questions about the project and questioned the little developers there at the podium, and what the developers would say in response to their questions. So it was very, very interesting. Also, they voted, and that was also an interesting experience, because what second grader would not want a movie theater in their hometown? But I believe all 4 groups voted no for the movie theater based on its location and the fact that it would displace homeowners. There were several elements, and David, you can chime in at any time to let me know if I'm missing something. But it was very interesting, very educational, and I think the kids got a lot out of it. I know that the adults definitely got a lot out of it, because most of the adults were in favor of the movie theater.
I would just add, Mayor, that Councilwoman McDaniel could maybe qualify as a second grade teacher. In terms of government, she has a nice model for government, which is a tree, and did that with the kids, and it was a lot of fun, and did a good job.
Thank you. And you as well.
Dave?
I'd like to thank Don Boland for introducing a concept that I learned back in the mid-'80s when I was managing information resources, the concept of needs versus wants. And I think that's at the heart of our budget problem right now. We haven't quite figured that one out yet. Mr. Greenlee brought up a point about the ethics policy and the fact that it provides information for voters. And not surprisingly, I see that from a different perspective. If you turn that around, the question is, who provides the information? And is it tainted? So I look at the ethics policy as an opportunity for partisan mischief, which I would like to avoid. And in fact, I think the point of bringing up the ethics policy in the first place was to avoid partisan mischief. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that having a policy introduces that opportunity. So that's why I'm opposing it. The other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to build on what Mayor Jeff Gard said, because I hear the voice of bitter experience here. I've been there, Jeff. It occurs to me that our economic rainy days are going to continue for an undetermined period of time into the future. And I think that reserves need to be conserved to meet the obligations that we will have versus some of the nice-to-need projects that we're voting money from reserves for right now. And that's my major issue with what we're doing these days. Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to talk about these issues.
Thank you, Dave. Any last items?
Just one thing. Just one thing I wanted to mention in regard to the tunnel or the petroglyph tunnel, that Councilmember Costin spent many hours working with both the architect and the high school students who put together that rock art. It involved field trips to up through the Columbia Gorge and hours of meetings, and I particularly want to thank Molly for all of the work that she put in on that.
Okay, if there's no other items, I'd certainly entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank
Who
you.
votes against that? Could be that they're worn out by that time.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you for your support on that issue, and I don't